Philippines' further liberalization of economic laws and other reforms are seen to attract more investors from countries like the United Kingdom. British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Chris Nelson, joins us now live in the studios. Wow, the past 3 years, we've been speaking via Zoom. Now we have you live in our CNN Philippines studios. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here, Rico, and great to actually be live and see all your viewers.
So, the UK just celebrated its Great British Festival just a couple of weeks ago. How successful was that in reinforcing UK-Philippine ties?
Sure, I think it was very successful. We have over 50,000 visitors. I think the key point was it also reaffirmed long-standing companies that are here that we have, Shell, HSBC, Pru Life, but also new companies that have joined us, like CyberQ, One World Butcher, Union Jack. I mean, these are traditional. We had Borough Pizza, which is now... so we had a lot of our UK food. We also had, obviously, the retail, Marks and Spencer's. We had, of course, also entertainment, which, of course, is Shakespeare. We had, of course, Ballet Manila doing, of course, those kayaks. So, look, all credit, it was a great, very successful event. We did it in partnership with the British Embassy. And, of course, I know our ambassador, Lord Beaufils, was here talking about it pre.
That's right. That's right. So we're seeing quite a number of British companies who have definitely stayed in the Philippines. This is now their home, and we're seeing now an influx of new British investors. What makes the Philippines an attractive destination for these new investors?
Well, I think a number of factors. The first is, of course, the Philippines in its own right is 110 million people. It's a young, dynamic workforce, and therefore, of course, that is attractive, particularly to some of our major brands. Obviously, we've done very well in terms of food and beverage. But if I look at the broader picture, I think also the passage of the laws, which you mentioned before, most recent one, of course, now is that foreign companies can own 100% in terms of renewable energies, so that will be attractive. And I think also the fact that the Philippines has now joined RCEP, I think that will be officially, it's ratified it, and it will actually, I think, be fully in there by, I think, the 2nd of June. And that gives, one of the things we've always pushed, actually, is the Philippines is a very attractive market in its own right, but a gateway to Southeast Asia.
How will the RCEP plus these liberalization of economic laws firmly reinforce that the Philippines could be an investment hub in Southeast Asia?
Well, I think it does a number of things. I mean, first of all, RCEP, of course, is the largest trading bloc in the world. And along with that, the UK has just become a member of CPTPP, which means...
Which the Philippines is not a part of.
No, but I think it's now a push for them to look at it. And I think now the Department of Trade and Investment is looking at TPP. And I think also that reinforces how critically important I think Southeast Asia and the Philippines can sit there. And I think the further liberalization of the Philippine economy, which we're seeing, and all credit to the previous administration and this administration, President Marcos, keeping that trend going forward, I think you'll see renewed interest from British companies and British investors.
All right, we've seen a huge influx of exports, British exports into the Philippines in 2022, totaling about 2.1 billion pounds. Are we going to see more exports into the country in 2023? But on the flip side as well, I mean, we also have to balance the trade between the both countries. What about exports from the Philippines to the UK?
So let me take both those points. I think we have seen a great increase. Particularly one area that we've worked on, of course, is the export of British pork, which obviously is a key thing about food security and an assistance also on pricing. With regard to your other way, exports back, we're very optimistic to launch a new scheme. This has obviously been developed by our colleagues at the Embassy under the British Business and Trade, and that's called the Developing Countries Tariff Scheme. Hopefully that will be actually launched somewhere in June, and if that's the case, it will actually mean that about 90% of all Philippine products to the UK will be tariff-free.
And at the moment, what kind of Philippine products, Chris, are being exported to the UK?
So obviously, there's a lot of products are well known in terms of agricultural, mangoes. We also have electrical products, which are added on. Apparently also eyewear goes there. But what we're going to see actually is more additions with the developing countries' tariff scheme, and that should give a further boost. And of course, we work closely with the Philippine Embassy in London. They have a trade section. We have very close relations there. That's led by Michel Sanchez. So we work together because obviously it's a joint thing, as you rightly put, Rico. Obviously for UK companies, but we also want to see Philippine companies doing well.
That's right. There has to be a balance of trade between the two countries. But of course, it's not all a bed of roses. When British companies invest here in the Philippines, they also have their own complaints, like graft and corruption, the ease of doing business, peace and order. Do you think that this current administration is resolving those problems for more British investors to take a second look at the Philippines?
I think so. I mean, I think, first of all, the current administration, I think, has done well. It's continued to liberalise the economy. It's obviously now looking at the economic clauses within the Constitution, as you know, which are those negative barriers. I think in terms of the ease of doing business, which is a key point raised by SMEs, that's also been an attempt at focus. So, yes, I think there are... It's going to be some progress, but it's making it there. And what I can say is that with these changes, the Philippines is also being competitive, because we have to be very competitive with other countries within Southeast Asia.
With the economic liberalization laws, with RCEP, and I mean, we're seeing President Marcos visiting many countries around the world, inviting investors to the country. He will also be in the UK for King Charles' coronation in early May. Is there still a need to revise the Constitution? Does it have to be opened up to further liberalize the economy for foreign investors?
Look, I think obviously there are key considerations when you do that. But saying that, of course, within your constitution, you know, there are economic barriers. There's what they call the negative investment clauses. And I think that's worth consideration. And I'm glad you've made the point that obviously President Marcos is attending the coronation on May 6. And that reinforces, of course, the very strong relations, 77 years between the two countries. And, of course, President Marcos as well attended Oxford when he was there. So good to see, and obviously we're looking forward to that visit. And I do think adding this all up, it's keeping that momentum going forward, Rico. We really want British companies and investments, and as it's been said by the administration, to make this an investment destination.
And do you think he will be able to meet British investors when he goes to the UK for the coronation? It will be a very busy schedule where you have hundreds of dignitaries and global leaders attending the coronation of King Charles.
I totally agree. It'll be a very busy time. I'm not privy to what his actual agenda will be. However, I do think it's great that he's attending. I think it'll be a signal, and I think it'll just reinforce. And let's not forget, the economic team of Secretary Jochno and others visited the UK after they were obviously in Davos. They went to Frankfurt, and therefore this is to continue. And it's all about that momentum, and therefore growing, as we've talked about, trade investment between the two countries.
And yourself personally, Chris, are you excited about the King's coronation on May 6th? And what can we look forward to in this momentous event?
Well, look, I think it's going to be different. It's going to be a reduced, as I understand, shorter trip of the carriage. But I think also it highlights, obviously, that the King is there. I think he's looking to, as we understand, modernise or take the monarchy forward. It's going to be, as you know, as you said, many dignitaries. I think it's going to be over 2,000 will actually be in attendance. But, of course, many more watching in London and around the world. And I think it just reinforces the close ties that the UK has with many countries. And it's very good to see that President Marcos and his wife is going to be attending the coronation.
Are there any particular issues that King Charles is so passionate about that we can expect will be part of his priorities when he is king?
Well, as you know, I mean, it's a non-political monarchy, but he's well known for his passion on the environment. And obviously that's been something he's been consistent about. So all credit to the King. But again, it's a non-political role. I think he's looking to see how he can bring and continue to modernise the economy. And also, obviously, continue the legacy of his mother, who was, as we know, on the throne for 70 years.
Well, we do hope that he will be visiting the Philippines sometime soon, and maybe even the new UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, can be visiting the Philippines.
We would sincerely hope that, and let's look forward to that if that happens. But in the meantime, let's look forward to the coronation and the visit of President Marcos to London.
And of course, closer trade and business relations between the UK and the Philippines.
Undoubtedly.
All right. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word. Great to have you with us.
A pleasure, and very good to see you again.
Chris Nelson of the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. And straight ahead,